Hey, James. It's really nice to see you again. How's your week been so far?
Hey Lisa, it's been pretty good actually. I've been a little busy with work, but I finally had some time to relax this weekend. What about you?
Almost the same here. I kept telling myself I was going to practice more English this week, but somehow life got in the way again.
That sounds very familiar. I think we've all had weeks like that, where our plans are much bigger than our free time.
Exactly. But something funny happened a few days ago. I was talking to a tourist who asked me for directions, and afterward, I couldn't stop thinking about the conversation.
Oh, what happened?
Well, I answered all of his questions, but the moment I walked away, I suddenly thought of 10 much better sentences. Have you ever had that happen?
More times than I can count. It's almost like my English waits until the conversation is completely over before it decides to show up.
Yes. During the conversation, my brain feels completely empty. Then 10 minutes later, I'm suddenly speaking perfect English to absolutely nobody.
Honestly, if you're listening right now and you've ever experienced that, you're definitely not alone. In fact, it connects to a much bigger question that so many English learners ask themselves.
Why are we still afraid to speak English, even when we actually know more than we think?
That's exactly what we're talking about today, because the answer has much less to do with grammar than most people imagine.
I used to think my problem was vocabulary. Every time I couldn't say something quickly, I'd tell myself, "See, you don't know enough words yet."
I know what you mean. That's a very common thought, but it's not always true. Sometimes you already know the words, you just can't reach them because you're feeling nervous.
That makes so much sense. It's funny because when I'm studying alone, I can remember plenty of words. But the second someone looks at me and says, "So, what do you think?" everything disappears.
Exactly. Your brain isn't suddenly forgetting English. It's simply trying to deal with pressure at the same time, and that makes it harder to think clearly.
I remember joining an online conversation group a few months ago. Before it started, I felt ready. I even wrote down some useful expressions I wanted to use.
That sounds like good preparation. So what happened once everyone started talking?
Well, the first person introduced herself, then the second person, and by the time it was my turn, my heart was beating so fast that I could barely remember my own notes.
That's happened to me before. You spend 10 minutes preparing the perfect introduction, and then your brain decides to take a short vacation.
That's exactly what it felt like. I kept thinking, don't make a mistake, don't sound silly.
And that's the important part. Your attention wasn't on the conversation anymore. It was on avoiding mistakes.
Wow, I never realized that. Instead of listening carefully, I was busy worrying about myself.
Right. Fear changes your focus. Instead of connecting with the other person, you start monitoring every single word that comes out of your mouth.
It's exhausting, honestly. By the end of a 5-minute conversation, I feel like I've run a marathon.
Because your brain is doing two jobs at once. It's trying to communicate while also judging everything you're saying.
You know what's strange? If someone else makes a grammar mistake, I hardly notice.
Same here. And even if I notice, I don't think less of them. I'm usually just happy they're making the effort to communicate.
That's true. Last week, I met a woman from Brazil at a coffee shop. Her English wasn't perfect, but she smiled the whole time, and we had such a nice conversation.
Exactly. When people are friendly and interested in the conversation, small language mistakes become much less important.
But when it's my turn to speak, I somehow believe everyone is paying attention to every tiny mistake I make.
That's our imagination working against us. Most people aren't giving your English a score, they're simply trying to understand what you're saying.
I wish I could remember that in the moment.
It takes practice. And there's another useful word that might help here too: self-conscious.
I've heard that expression before, but I'm not completely sure what it means.
If you're self-conscious, you're overly aware of yourself. You worry about how you look, how you sound, or what other people might think about you.
Oh, then I become incredibly self-conscious whenever I have to speak English with strangers.
That's a perfect example. And the interesting thing is that becoming self-conscious often makes conversations harder than they need to be.
I can definitely relate to that. Sometimes I'll stop in the middle of a sentence because I'm trying to choose the perfect word.
I've noticed many learners do that. Ironically, searching for the perfect word often interrupts the flow of the conversation.
So it's actually better to keep talking even if the word isn't perfect?
Most of the time, yes. Native speakers do that too. They rephrase things, change words halfway through a sentence, and even correct themselves. That's just normal conversation.
Really? I always imagined native speakers spoke perfectly all the time.
Not at all. Listen carefully to any real conversation, and you'll hear people pause, restart sentences, forget words, and change their minds halfway through.
That's actually reassuring. Maybe I've been comparing my real conversations to perfect English in textbooks or videos.
I think that's exactly what many learners do. But there's one mistake almost everyone makes before they even start speaking, and once you notice it, you begin to understand why fear feels so powerful.
Now I'm curious, what's that mistake? I have a feeling I've probably been making it without even realizing.
I think most of us have. We wait until we feel quote-unquote ready before we start speaking. But the truth is that feeling of being completely ready almost never comes.
Ouch, that sounds a little too familiar. I've told myself I'll start speaking after I learn a few hundred more words, more times than I can count.
And then a few hundred words become 1,000. After that, you tell yourself you need better pronunciation or better grammar. The finish line keeps moving.
That's exactly what happens. Every time I improve one thing, I find something else to worry about.
Because the real problem isn't usually your English level. It's the belief that you need to be perfect before you deserve to speak.
When you say it like that, it sounds so unfair. I would never expect a friend to be perfect before opening their mouth.
Neither would I. We'd probably encourage them and say, just give it a try. But somehow we forget to give ourselves that same kindness.
A friend of mine started learning English only about a year ago. She makes grammar mistakes all the time, but she's always chatting with people online.
How has her English improved?
Honestly, much faster than mine. She isn't afraid to make mistakes, so she gets so much more speaking practice.
That's a great example. She probably sees every conversation as practice instead of a test.
A test? I think that's the word I've been looking for. Every conversation feels like an exam that I have to pass.
Exactly. And exams make people nervous. Conversations are supposed to be about sharing ideas, not proving how much you know.
That changes the way I think about it. If I'm talking to someone at a cafe, they aren't grading my English.
Right. They're usually just wondering what coffee to order or what they're going to do after work. Your grammar isn't the center of their universe.
When you put it that way, it sounds almost silly that I spend so much time worrying.
We all do it sometimes. Our minds naturally imagine that everyone is watching us much more closely than they really are.
You know, this reminds me of something that happened on vacation. I asked a local for directions, and I accidentally used the wrong word.
Oh no, what happened?
I immediately apologized because I thought I'd embarrassed myself. But he just smiled, understood what I meant, and kept helping me.
That's such a common experience. Most people appreciate the effort you're making. They aren't waiting for you to speak flawless English.
Looking back, the only person who was upset about my mistake was me.
Exactly. We often create much more pressure than the other person ever does.
Can I ask you something? Did you ever have one moment that helped you stop being so afraid?
I did, actually. It wasn't a big achievement or a perfect conversation. It was something much smaller.
Now you have to tell me. Don't leave me wondering.
Sure. I remember ordering food in another language years ago. I made several mistakes, forgot a word halfway through, and even pointed at the menu to explain myself.
That sounds stressful already.
It was, until the waiter smiled, understood everything, and brought me exactly what I wanted. Walking back to my table, I realized something.
What was it?
The conversation had been successful, even though my language wasn't perfect. My goal wasn't to impress anyone, it was simply to communicate.
That's such a simple idea, but I think it's easy to forget. Somewhere along the way, I started believing that successful communication meant speaking perfectly.
I used to believe that too, but successful communication often means being understood, asking questions when you're confused, and continuing the conversation instead of giving up.
So maybe confidence doesn't come after perfect English.
Maybe confidence grows every time you discover that a conversation can still go well even when you make mistakes.
I really like that thought, but I'm still wondering how we can practice that in everyday life, especially if we don't have many chances to speak English.
That's probably the biggest challenge for me. I don't live in an English-speaking country, so I can't just walk outside and start chatting with people in English every day.
I hear that from learners all the time. It sounds like a huge obstacle, but I've realized we often underestimate how many small opportunities are already around us.
What kind of opportunities are you thinking about? Because my daily routine feels pretty ordinary.
Let's think about a normal weekday. You wake up, make breakfast, commute to work or school, buy a coffee, take a lunch break, maybe go grocery shopping, and then head home. That's a lot of moments you can turn into speaking practice.
Wait, you mean talking to myself?
Sometimes yes, and before anyone listening worries, talking to yourself isn't strange when you're learning a language. It's actually a great way to build confidence without feeling judged.
You know what? I secretly do that sometimes. I'll look at my breakfast and think, today I'm having toast and scrambled eggs. Then I immediately stop because I feel a little silly.
Honestly, don't stop. Those simple moments are valuable because you're training your brain to connect thoughts directly with English instead of translating everything first.
I've noticed something interesting. When I describe simple things out loud, the words come much more naturally than when I'm trying to memorize vocabulary from a long list.
Exactly. Your brain remembers language better when it has a real purpose. That's why conversations, and even little conversations with yourself, can be surprisingly effective.
I guess that's why I always forget random vocabulary lists, but remember funny conversations I've had with friends.
That's a great observation. Our brains love stories, emotions, and experiences. They don't enjoy memorizing isolated words nearly as much.
So instead of forcing myself to learn 20 new words every day, I could use 5 words in a real situation.
I'd choose that every time. If you use a few words naturally over and over, they become part of your active vocabulary instead of just sitting in your notebook.
There's another word I've heard a lot lately, habit. Everyone says build good habits, but what does that really mean?
A habit is something you do regularly without needing to think too much about it. Brushing your teeth is a habit. Making your morning coffee might be a habit too.
So the goal isn't to practice English for 3 hours once a week, it's to make English a small part of everyday life.
Exactly. Once speaking English becomes a habit, it feels much less scary because it's no longer something unusual.
That reminds me of my walk home from work yesterday. I had my headphones on, listening to an English podcast, but I never actually spoke.
That's already a good start. But imagine if, after listening for a minute, you paused the podcast and tried to answer the host's question out loud.
Oh, that's interesting. It would almost feel like I was part of the conversation.
Exactly. You don't need another person every single time. You can practice responding naturally, and little by little, speaking begins to feel less intimidating.
I think I'd enjoy that. Sometimes I already answer questions in my head while listening.
Then you're halfway there. The next step is simply saying those thoughts out loud.
I have to admit, that still feels a little uncomfortable.
Of course it does. Anything new feels uncomfortable at first, but here's another useful word. Comfortable doesn't always mean helpful.
That's an interesting way to look at it.
If we only do what's comfortable, we often stay exactly where we are. Small moments of discomfort are usually where growth begins.
That reminds me of going to the gym for the first time. I felt awkward walking in, and I thought everyone was watching me.
And after a few visits,
I realized everyone was busy doing their own workout. Nobody really cared what I was doing.
speaking English is surprisingly similar. At first, it feels like everyone is paying attention to you. Then, with experience, you realize most people are simply happy to have a conversation.
I never expected confidence to come from so many tiny moments instead of one big breakthrough.
Neither did I. Looking back, I can't point to one magical day when I suddenly became confident. It happened one conversation at a time, one mistake at a time, and one small success at a time.
I think that's encouraging because it means we don't have to change everything overnight.
Exactly. And when you look back a few months later, those small moments often add up to something much bigger than you ever expected.
You know, after everything we've talked about today, there are a few words and ideas that I don't want to forget. I feel like today's conversation changed the way I think about speaking English. It's funny because we didn't really talk about difficult grammar at all.
You're right. Sometimes the biggest obstacle isn't grammar or vocabulary. It's the story we keep telling ourselves before we even start speaking.
Let's go over some of the words we talked about today, because I think hearing them again will help them stick.
Great idea. The first one was confidence. In today's conversation, confidence didn't mean speaking perfect English. It meant trusting yourself enough to keep talking, even when you make mistakes.
I really like that definition. So instead of saying, I'll speak when I'm confident, maybe I should remember that confidence grows because I speak.
Exactly. The next word was self-conscious. If you're self-conscious, you're spending a lot of energy worrying about how other people see you.
And I think many of us become self-conscious the moment someone starts listening to our English.
That's completely normal. The important thing is noticing it and gently bringing your attention back to the conversation instead of your mistakes.
Then we talked about habit.
Right. A habit is something you do regularly until it becomes part of your daily routine. Even 5 or 10 minutes of speaking every day can be much more powerful than studying for hours once a week.
I think that's the idea I'm going to remember tomorrow morning. While I'm making breakfast or walking to work, I'll try describing what I'm doing in English instead of staying completely silent.
I love that plan because it's realistic. You don't need perfect conditions to practice. You can create small opportunities almost anywhere.
And there was one sentence you said that really stayed with me. Comfortable doesn't always mean helpful.
I'm glad you remembered that one. Growth often begins just outside our comfort zone, but it doesn't have to be something huge. One short conversation is enough.
You know, at the beginning of this episode, I thought fearless English speakers were just naturally confident people.
I used to believe that too, but after meeting learners from all over the world, I've realized that most confident speakers were once nervous beginners. They simply kept showing up.
That's encouraging because it means we're not trying to become different people. We're just becoming a little braver each time we speak.
Exactly. And remember, every conversation teaches you something. Even the awkward ones are moving you forward.
So if you're listening today and you've been waiting until your English feels perfect, maybe this is your reminder that perfect isn't the goal.
The goal is connection. The goal is sharing ideas, asking questions, laughing together, and understanding another person a little better than you did before.
And honestly, if you make a mistake along the way,
you're doing exactly what every language learner and every native speaker does from time to time.
that's actually a pretty comforting thought.
It really is.
We hope this conversation helped you feel a little more relaxed about speaking English. If it did, we'd love for you to keep learning with us.
If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with a friend who's learning English too. You never know, it might be the encouragement they need today.
And if there's a topic you'd like us to talk about in a future episode, let us know. We always enjoy hearing about your experiences, because many of our best conversations start with your questions.
Before we go, here's one small challenge. The next time someone asks you a simple question in English, don't worry about finding the perfect answer. Just answer naturally and keep the conversation going.
Even if you pause?
Even if you make a grammar mistake.
Even if you forget a word?
Keep talking. You might be surprised by how much you can already communicate.
Thank you so much for spending part of your day with us. Whether you're listening on your morning commute, during a coffee break, on a walk, or while relaxing at home, we're really happy you joined us.
Take care of yourself, keep practicing a little every day, and remember, every conversation is another step forward.
Before you leave, we'd love to hear from you. What's one situation where you still feel nervous speaking English? And what's one small step you're going to try after listening to today's episode?
Thanks for listening, and we'll be looking forward to reading your answers in the comments. Until next time, keep speaking, keep smiling, and most importantly, keep believing that your voice is worth hearing.